Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Esteemed FaceTime with Leaders, an initiative by World Development Corporation. I am Falakzeeb Khan, anchor at World Development Corporation. FaceTime with Leaders is a platform for industry titans to share their experiences, thoughts, ideas, and best practices in order to inspire one another and future leaders. In a nutshell, we attempt to encapsulate the multi-decadal learnings acquired by these industry leaders. We also hope that by conducting these FaceTime with Leaders interviews, we can bring together a global community of eminent personalities. By bringing together such visionaries on one platform, we hope to play a part in inspiring the lives of other leaders. Great learnings from great leaders undoubtedly assist everyone by identifying, nurturing, and using the trade secrets that are proven success formulas for many. And this is what we aim for with these sessions by making them a gathering of industry stalwarts and a knowledge sharing community. We have one such personage on FaceTime with Leaders with us today, Mr. Manoj Kumar NK. Hello, welcome, Mr. Manoj Kumar. We are glad to have you here today with us on FaceTime with Leaders.
Thank you so much, Falakzeeb. Appreciate it.
Thank you. So let me give you a quick brief about Mr. Kumar. He is a name synonymous with excellence in customer success and experience management, digital transformation, integrated facilities management, strategic account management, and delivery excellence. With a career spanning over 2.5 decades, he has proven to be a versatile, inspired, and dynamic individual with a strong track record in various industries, including integrated facilities management, that is IFMS, SaaS, business process management, and hospitality. His expertise lies in CX strategy and operations management, as well as building collaborative and value-driven partnerships. So, Mr. Manoj Kumar, could you tell us more about your journey as a co-founder of Nanya, the integrated facilities management company, and the key milestones you have achieved since its inception?
Interesting question. A lot of people ask me this question. So here you go. So firstly, I'll start with, basically passion brought me to curate Nanya, number one, right? With my extensive experience in the corporate world, as a matter of fact, 14 years ago, I got my hands into managing a few realty assets, which was part of the family. Started with very basic management of, the buildings, the tenants, associated nuances, machine and equipment on site. How do you care for them? How do you, go into from reactive to proactive maintenance and elements like those? And most importantly, learning the fulfillment of government compliances was a big takeaway. Outside that, record keeping, reporting of costs and revenues, along with high dependency on people, intrigued me. I said, why can't we make this better? Or should I say, how could we make this better? And the first thought I had, many years after that was Nanya was born in 2020, just before the pandemic hit us. That's the first part of your question, Falakzeeb. The second one is in terms of key milestones. I would say we started, pretty much on a whiteboard. So for me, key milestones would start from, getting a brand name and a logo in place. A lot of thought in terms of how the name and the logo needs to be, what the name means for us and for the company. Secondly, the most important thing in a business is how do you create a value proposition, right? How are you different from other players in the market? And with us, it's primarily two things. And one is tech and maintenance operations, and of course, crafting roadmaps to sustainability. These are the two differentiators on our side. The next milestone was in a red ocean or a blue ocean, would you say? I would pretty much say red ocean. Identifying a niche market segment. And that's super important for a business. So that was another milestone. And it took us almost about 18 to 20 months to do that. In the meantime, winning the first IFM business was another big milestone. And of course, as business grows, you have to think about de-risking the business, right? So hence, you think through how do you diversify to sustain? How do you diversify to continue to chug along while a lot of elements come into play and ups and downs? So diversifying the business across myriad verticals was another big milestone. And I think that's number of milestones for now.
That's really very great. I mean, interesting career journey and interesting about, like Nanya. You have an extensive career in customer success and experience management. Could you elaborate on your approach to building and nurturing collaborative, value-driven partnerships, particularly in the context of your previous roles?
Yeah, sure. It's going to be a long story, but I'll try to make it as short as possible, for Alexei. So typically in business, relationships bring and keep businesses together. It all starts from there, and there are number of elements that influence, this particular customer experience management or customer success. Right? It starts with clearly setting crystal clear expectations. Super important. When you start engaging with an individual or a business or a company, you might come to the table with a product or a service, whether it's short-term, long-term, transactional, relationship building, whatsoever. It's important to set that expectations. Number two, second thing, communication can go haywire in a business because you interact with not one, with more than one, but more than hundreds of people. So it's super important to get a single point of contact for you to communicate. So communication is the next important element, right? The core in all things that we do today is being customer centric. Customer is king, but you should have that customer centric philosophy, behavior, mindset, which is not easy.
Right.
Typically, they say behavior, they say you have to go through 21 days of doing the same task, and that's when it becomes muscle memory, right? Similarly, you have to be practicing that behavior, which is customer centric philosophy. That's another one, right? Then a customer can tell you multiple things, right? When you sell a product or service, it's super important that your service or product matches to what the customer is looking for at that point in time in the business, which means you have to be listening to your customer, not hearing the customer. Above all that, the most important element that I previously mentioned is a value proposition. So you have to talk through what your value proposition is, what's in it for the customer first 6 months down the line, or before you go live, 1 month, 2 months, whatever that time frame is. And post go live, you say 6 months, then a year and a half, and then 3 years. What are we bringing to the table, right? Definitely customers can come up with so many elements, right? You have to also look at problem solving proactively. In the hospitality industry, in my experience, when I first started, I was waiting at a restaurant trying to serve a table, and my restaurant manager comes up to me and he says, you know what, the highest point in customer experience is when somebody sitting at a table looks into your eye in the course of a meal, and you actually know what he or she wants, and you take it to them directly, than making 2 trips. So that proactiveness is important. Emotional quotient is important. So these are behaviors that you have to imbibe and learn and practice day in and day out. While you do all these things and manage customers' expectations and elements like those, you have to have rationale with you, which means data-driven insights. You have to have data, which means you have to capture data. You have to educate customers and yourselves and your team to infer from data, which is data is basically a lot of data, and you have noise and valid data. So you try to streamline that, you infer from data, you make decisions out of it, aligned with business goals and customers' goals, and that's exactly how you move forward. And you don't talk with one person in a business, right? You talk to probably a project team, you talk to a finance guys, you talk to the legal guys, you talk to the operations guys, you talk to CEOs, the C-suite people, which means you have to know how to collaborate cross-functionally. It's a skill again. Now, most of the things that I talk to you about right now are skills, which you have to develop over time. And you should be open to looking at managing different kinds of people. The world, it takes all kinds of people to make the world, right? And most importantly, I've used this word most importantly, not more than once, but 3 times now. But feedback from customers, you have to listen to them constantly, regularly. If it's once a month, so be it. If it's initially once in 15 days, so be it. Later, once things stabilize, maybe you should go back and say, look, why don't we catch up once in a quarter and I listen to what you're saying, and then we move forward. So that's exactly how it's a combination of all these ingredients, that help conjure up, build that relationship. And it's not only this, right? I mean, you've built a strong relationship and a business partnership when your existing customers refer you to new customers or prospects and come in and say, look, you know what? This person or this gentleman in this company is a good friend of mine, and he referred me to you because you guys are great. We don't need any more testimonials for that. If you can achieve that objective, I think you are at the pinnacle of managing business relationships. And of course, you have to continuously demonstrate value. After 3 years or 5 years, you can't relax and say, look, I think we've come to the end of the journey with a value offering or value proposition. You have to constantly look at improvising, innovating, and see what best works for your customer and yourselves.
True. That's really very great and very interesting, I must say. So, as a seasoned professional, you have excelled in managing various aspects of business operations. Can you share some specific examples of how you have driven efficiencies and profitability in your previous roles?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, number of examples that I can think of, but specifically two that that are top of my mind, and I normally talk about them during such kind of conversations. So during our BPO operations, right, one of the examples is we had a customer and we were managing back office operations for them, and we had different types of customer queries which were categorized across 170 plus groups, and we had a team of about 250, 300 people. Obviously, you have to bring in efficiency. What's the value if a customer is spending X amount of money, especially outsourcing, right? And so what we did, let's look at the complexity of each of these ticket types or group types, and also look at the skill sets of our team, basically the customer service associates who are managing these requests day in and day out. And we mapped it. We brought that 170 plus groups down to 29 groups, which means we multi-skilled existing team members and made an optimized resources and time and managed queries, including turnaround time. So that was a huge efficiency value that we brought to the table, and customers loved it. And because we did this, we actually got the doors opened up for another merger and acquisition opportunity with the same customer, where they were struggling with efficiencies across a couple of centers, in South America and other areas. And we came up with a proposal. We said, why don't we look at what's happening today, and let's see how best we can improve efficiencies, optimize costs, resources, and then take the headache off your hands. And they welcomed that with open arms. And what we did is we got the opportunity to set foot in a new country. We did, and we moved operations, improved efficiencies in less than 120 days since the time we went live. And that was a close to about $3 million saving to the customer. Now, these are the things that we'd love to talk about. I mean, you have a customer, you have a relationship, great. The customer could have a great relationship in the office, fantastic. Maybe you have a good social relationship as well with the customer, fantastic. But what it boils down to in a business is, consistently, are you improvising? Continuously, are you delivering value? And how is it benefiting not only the customer, but you as well as a business offering? So that's pretty much the two things that I can think of, but many more, but I think these two are the highlights.
That's really, really great and interesting, I must say. So moving ahead, we want to know how and when did you develop an interest in ESG and corporate governance?
Okay, those are two different things, right? So we'll take that one at a time, Falakzeeb. So let's start with ESG, right? During my stint across different companies, right, and different industries, I think one common element that literally struck out and was visible for me was corporate governance, right? In the midst of a million dynamics and nuances, what does it take for a business head or a C-suite member to be accountable, to be transparent, to be fair, to be equal, and to be responsible. And this is a journey. It's a very interesting journey. It has its ups and downs, and every time in every industry this is common. The hospitality industry, the tech industry, or the business process outsourcing industry, wherever you go, right? And this one caught my attention. I said, okay, how do people do it, right? So I'm sure there's tons and tons of information about it, but the four core elements or pillars that I would think about is, how can we be accountable to shareholders, to customers, to peers, to employees, and everybody else, to service partners, the larger team, right? Holistic approach is a thought. It's important to be transparent, and that's a thin line. It's like walking on thin ice. You want to be transparent, but you can't be transparent at all the time. So how do you manage that, right? You look at a lot of people around you, you talk to your peer community, say, how do you manage this? How do you communicate this? There are situations, work through that. And that's interesting because you're bringing your creative mind there. You're trying to be innovative. You're trying to balance things out and not rock the ship too much. Being fair, super important. Again, this is a very challenging element, right? You want to be fair. Most often than not, you will be fair, but there are situations where you have to take a call, right? I'll give you a little story, offbeat one, okay? In Bhagavad Gita or in the Mahabharata, in the main war, Arjuna is ready with his arrow to shoot at his Dodappa, I would say. In Kannada, Dodappa is like your dad's elder brother, right? And then Arjuna says, he was everything for me, and you're asking me to go kill him. And Krishna says, people have done their deeds, goods and bads. Now is the time for him to let go of the bad karma, and you're the one to relieve him of that. When you say this, it's important that you have to be fair, but at the same point in time, you have to consider so many elements to make that decision, to say, this is how we need to move forward, right? Sometimes there's a compromise, but we got to move forward with that. It's challenging, and that interests me a lot, right? And responsible. Finally, responsible to stakeholders, responsible to employees, responsible to service partners, responsible to customers, and above all, responsible to Mother Nature, who's given us so many things. And sometimes we don't pay attention to that. And segueing into sustainability from there, right? It's important to give back to Mother Nature, and that's something very close to my heart. Small things like something close by, go on a bicycle or take a walk, carry your own bags, try to turn lights off and see what things we can do to give back to Mother Nature. There are a ton of opportunities on how we could get on the bandwagon towards sustainable practices. And that's pretty much been my driving force. Today, when we manage buildings, we have a very strong approach in terms of when we take on a new site or a new commercial building or a residential building, we say in the first 6 months while we set operations, it's super important that we have a 10,000 feet level on how can we move what we're doing today towards sustainable operations. And we're already thinking about that, because by the end of year one, it's time to think through and start executing them. And that's what everybody is leaning towards, right? And especially during my time in the corporate world, we focus so much on another element which is important: diversity and inclusion, right? Celebrating Pride months, having group conversations on people being vulnerable at workplace and how organizations support employees from diverse backgrounds. So there's so many elements that are here. It's just not about your product or service and customer and business relationships. It's also about your own team, your own employees, knowing them better, supporting them, ups and downs. Everybody has highs and lows in life, yeah, but it's super important to support them when they are low. And they're the ones who are going to stay with you, stand with you when chips are down, and they're the ones who are going to celebrate with you when chips are up. So these elements, between ESG and corporate governance, interested me so much, and I've continued to, read up on them. And today, I think many years ago, the first thing that we came up was that Satyam saga, right? I hate to take names, but it is what it is, right? But there are so many more that are happening today. You delve into that in more details and you understand why people took certain decisions, but you never get to the crux of it, right? So these stories are learnings, how we shouldn't make such errors and rather be simple, think through, and be commonsensical and make those decisions and move forward. So I think I spoke a lot about how my interests began with ESG and sustainability, but yeah, corporate governance, but yeah, that's where we are.
That's really great. Very interesting indeed to listen to that. Next question. Our next question is also on the similar line. So, as an ESG and corporate governance expert, what values do you bring to the table?
Okay, I think I mentioned this. I'm just going to state those values. See, it's important to be transparent in what you do, set clear expectations. When you commit something, deliver it, which means take accountability, be fair, and risks will come in. You got to manage risks. I think these are like 4 or 5 elements that are core values, and you can craft many more sentences or statements outside these core values. So the skeleton structure is basically this: transparency, being fair, being accountable for what you do, actions and decisions you take, responsible to your people, and of course, managing risks. Those are main elements for me.
That's great. Wonderful, indeed, I must say. So, when we talk about technology, what are some of the most remarkable changes you have seen in your field with changes in technology? And what changes do you expect to see with the advent of IoT, AI, ML, blockchain, big data, and Web 3.0?
Wow. Yeah, let's Google that. Okay, on a lighter note. Okay, coming back to your question, Falak. So I think when it comes to tech, we've moved from writing data information on paper to spreadsheets, and then to probably IoT devices, and now to AI and ML, and beyond that, right? So if you actually specifically talk about how it is impacted or how things are evolving in the integrated facilities management space, it is evolving, but a lot of people are still working in silos. I'll give you an example. There are so many machine and equipment. If you think of a site, let's say a commercial building or your office building, right? You have everything from HVAC systems, you have diesel generators, you have elevators, you have water treatment plants, you have sewage treatment plants, and all that stuff, right? Even today, a lot of people do things manually. I'm saying these are mundane tasks that we can improve efficiency in. What if we automate these tasks? What if we have information that brings visibility to how each of these machine and equipment are operating live? Then there's lesser intervention. Then there'll be an intervention only when it is required, which means a human being need not go every day to check that machine or equipment, which means they can do better tasks, which means they can prioritize what they need to do, which means they're building efficiencies, and which means it's reducing costs, which means it's optimizing costs, right? So these IoT devices are helping us to do this and walk this journey. And why not we take advantage of that? I mean, putting in an IoT device in a diesel generator, which we are doing right now, right, in one of our sites, it's giving us information close to about, literally, I'm not exaggerating, 2000 parameters from a DG set. Can you even believe that? I couldn't imagine that, right? I mean, what am I going to do with 2000? That's why in my initial response, I said, there's data. And data has a lot of information. It has noise, it has valuable information. Now it's important to bring that valuable information together. And IoT and tech platforms help us make it happen, right? And if we have visibility of about, let's say, 25 equipments or machines on site on one single dashboard, you can just monitor them day in and day out, right? If anything is going wrong, you build a buffer, which is upper limit and lower limit. You create configure a notification via business rule, and then either the technician or the site manager gets to know about it and they attend to it. There's enough time, right? So tech is good. It's not going to replace human beings. AI and ML is good. It's only going to help us become more efficient and optimize resources and costs. And I see that's the only way to embrace tech and move forward. There's no other way.
Yes, true that. And we just hope that, like technology grows in for better for everyone.
100%. It's how you see it, right? I mean, you say
Right.
today people say, oh, children are on Instagram all the time.
Hmm.
That's a topic, right? When it comes
And
to
any social media for that
any
matter.
social media, right? Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and all that stuff. But then my son went to school a couple of months back. He had a debate, right? Sorry to go offbeat a
Oh,
bit,
no
Falagji,
worries, no
but
worries.
then they had this conversation for and against debate. Instagram, is it going to help or not help
Okay.
students, right? And he was he was against, and he
Oh,
had to make up. Although he's on Instagram, he had to make up, understand how it's going to impact behavior, how it's going to impact time, how it's going to impact other elements, right? Yeah, it was interesting when I heard, what kind of points or he came up with and said, look, this is what I did. And I said, okay, good. You see the other side of the story as well, perspectives. So yeah, tech is good, tech is great, but it's super important to be very clear in terms of how you want to use what kind of tech, where you want to use them, and manage the outcome of it. Now if you've not mapped this whole 9 yards in terms of adopting tech devices, integrating all of them with people, process, and tech, and all these IoT sensors, then it's like garbage in and garbage out. So you'll have to be very clear in terms of how you want to move forward and what the outcomes are and what you're expecting from it.
right. So, as you know, we are building a community of industry magnets. The move is meant for cross-pollination of knowledge and building a knowledge-sharing community of corporate giants and industry experts. So, what are your thoughts about this initiative taken about by Mr. Zishan Pathan, Mr. Hemal Mehta, and the whole World Development Corporation team?
See, I think it's a good initiative. Having domain experts is critical. Too much information overload today. So if you want to go, for example, hey, listen, I want to talk to somebody who can do digital marketing for my business. I need to talk to a digital marketing expert, right? I am not an expert, right? So we go to an expert. Why? Because he or she has sliced and diced everything under digital marketing. So if you actually draw a parallel to this, to any other industry or any other business, it's super critical for the entire WDC, World Development Corporation, to basically create this whole, or diverse experts or domain experts under different businesses, could be startups, could be industries, or whatever segments, right? So that people can go to them and say, hey, this is what we are looking at it right now. How do you see it? Because whatever's happened earlier, Falakzeb, is only historical data. You can only get so much information from it saying, okay, this happened in the past, but here were business solutions to address that problem. But today we have a similar problem. It has three other dynamics in play. So how do we address that? So at least as a start point, you go back to the domain expert and say, hey, look, this is where we are. So you have a head start, and then we attack the other, influences or other nuances that have come into play as of today, right?
Sure.
So long story short, I think it's super important to build that, domain expertise kind of a forum. I'm sure it's going to help a lot, not only to businesses, but to individuals as well and corporates in the long run. Because everybody looks for information, there is a lot of information. We are looking for assurance, and assurance comes from domain experts who burn their fingers, been there, done that, and say, look, I've been there and done that. You can go this route. These are the challenges and roadblocks you will have. You can take this route, fast away, but here are the risks. Somebody to basically lay those things out, right? And that gives you an assurance, especially when business owners are second guessing, startup entrepreneurs are second guessing themselves, saying, hey, have I made a right decision? Okay, now hang on, let me tap into this, this forum and say, who's the domain expert here? Please help me with M&A. Please help me with opening up new business verticals. What does it take? Please help me with financial decisions, fundraising, so many other things, right? Challenges, maybe managing lawsuits, right? So many things. So yeah, that's my take. Long story short, yes, super helpful.
Thank you so much. These have been really kind words by you. So it was fantastic conversing with you. And I'm confident that your insights will inspire future leaders. Thank you, Mr. Manoj Kumar, for joining us today. We wish you the best for your future endeavors. Moreover, trust that this initiative by Directors Institute unquestionably has expanded the participants' understanding and enriched their minds. And all the wonderful different teachings and principles that you follow, that you shared with us, I'm sure like everyone watching this, it is going to help them, inspire them, and grow in their careers as well. So thank you so much once again for being with us today on FaceTime with Leaders.
Thank you so much, Falak. It was good sharing some tidbits and seeds of thought for everyone in the world there. Thank you so much. Have a good rest of the day.
You too. Take care.
Bye bye.